Welcome everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The morning Monica tried to bury Andy for good. The hallway outside the Daily Center in downtown Chicago felt colder than January wind. She arrived in a cream suit, a cruel smile on her face, and enough perfume to announce bad intentions before she even opened her mouth. "Make sure you get my good side," she told a cousin who had followed her there for gossip, then looked Andy up and down like he was trash left on a curb. "This is the face of a man who lost everything." Andy said nothing. He just adjusted his tie, held a thin folder, and waited for the judge. 3 months earlier, people would have sworn Andy and Monica were the kind of couple others copied. They lived in a brick townhouse in Bronzeville, took Sunday walks through Hyde Park, and argued mostly about harmless things, like whether deep dish pizza counted as real romance or edible construction material. Andy, a Black American architect with a dry sense of humor, loved structure, routine, and Monica's laugh when it used to be sincere. Monica loved attention, camera angles, brunches in River North, and reminding strangers that she had main character energy. Together, they looked polished, photogenic, and blessed, the kind of marriage people envied from a distance. They had met in Atlanta at a friend's 4th of July cookout years before. Andy had burned one side of every hot dog on the grill and somehow still made Monica laugh hard enough to snort lemonade. She teased him for wearing socks with sandals near the pool, and he teased her for calling potato salad a soft betrayal. That night, under backyard string lights and a sky full of fireworks, she leaned against his shoulder and told him she liked that he was calm. He told her she talked fast enough for both of them. They started long distance, survived airports and late-night calls, then built a life in Chicago. In the first years of marriage, Monica could turn ordinary days into bright, funny little memories. She once dragged Andy into a karaoke bar near Wrigleyville, swore she would sing only one song, then performed 3 with the confidence of a stadium headliner and the pitch control of a smoke alarm. Andy laughed so hard he nearly dropped his drink, and Monica threw a napkin at him between verses. On road trips, she made up fake biographies for strangers at gas stations. At home, she danced badly while making pancakes. Andy thought those silly moments were proof that whatever storms came later, they would always find their way back. The change was small at first, subtle enough to explain away. Monica began guarding her phone like it contained nuclear codes. She started taking late strategy meetings for her marketing firm, even on Fridays, and suddenly cared a great deal about gym selfies, silk dresses, and captions that sounded like they had been written for an audience rather than a husband. Andy noticed, but he wanted peace more than confrontation. His mother in Gary, Indiana, used to tell him, "A warning sign whispers before it shouts." Andy heard the whisper, ignored it, and kept pretending late-night texts were about work instead of a life sliding out of reach. Then came the first humiliation. At a birthday dinner in West Loop from Monica's friend Kira, someone joked about marriage surviving in the social media era. Monica lifted her glass, smiled too brightly, and said, "It survives better when one person doesn't act 80 years old before turning 40. The table laughed, thinking it was playful. Monica kept going. She mocked Andy's quietness, his bedtime, his simple clothes, even the fact that he still enjoyed jazz and bookstores more than clubs. "If I wanted to be bored to death, I'd just watch him order soup," she said. Andy smiled thinly while strangers laughed at his marriage dying. After that dinner, the insults stopped being private sparks and became a public routine. Monica posted little jokes online about emotionally unavailable men who think paying bills is a personality. Friends tagged her with laughing emojis. Andy never responded, not even when distant cousins texted him screenshots asking if everything was okay. At church on Sunday in South Shore, Monica clasped his hand in the pew, then spent brunch telling another couple that Andy loved spreadsheets more than affection. It was a trick she had perfected: hold him close where people could see loyalty, then cut him open with jokes where they could hear disrespect. Andy learned to swallow pain silently. The affair did not come to light because Monica confessed. It exploded because careless people always think they are smarter than consequences. One Saturday afternoon, Kira received screenshots from a woman in Naperville claiming Monica's work husband was not just a joke. The messages were explicit enough to end arguments and casual enough to reveal confidence. Hotel receipts, weekend plans, selfies, nicknames, inside jokes. The man was Damon, Monica's regional director, a married father who wore expensive watches and cheap morality. By nightfall, half their circle had seen the evidence. By morning, the affair had leaked through text threads, family calls, and church whispers with ruthless efficiency. Andy found out while buying catfish and hot sauce at a grocery store near 47th Street. His phone vibrated 11 times in 2 minutes. When he finally looked, the first screenshot landed like a hammer behind his ribs. The second made his knees weak. The third ended denial forever. He stood near the frozen food aisle staring at his wife, calling another man the only one who really sees me. An elderly lady reached around him for waffles, glanced at his face, and said, "Baby, breathe first. Fall apart later." Oddly enough, that tiny stranger gave him more kindness in 4 seconds than Monica had given him in months. Andy drove home ready for anger, tears, maybe even shame. Instead, Monica met him with annoyance. She sat at the kitchen island in one of his old college t-shirts, scrolling like scandal was just weather passing through. "Since you know, let's not be dramatic," she said. Then she did something crueler than admitting betrayal. She blamed him. She said he had become predictable, that he no longer challenged her, that Damon made her feel alive. Andy asked one question, voice shaking. "So you lied to me and laughed at me in public because you were cheating?" Monica shrugged. "I laughed because you made it easy." That sentence stayed in his bones. If Monica had shown remorse, maybe the story would have ended smaller. But humiliation intoxicated her. She went online the next day with a polished face, soft lighting, and a performance dressed as truth. Without naming Andy, she said women sometimes seek connection elsewhere when their husbands neglect them emotionally. She cried without tears, paused like a professional, and let strangers turn her betrayal into a self-care sermon. Comments flooded in from people who knew nothing but loved outrage. Andy's inbox filled with advice, blame, and nosy sympathy. Monica had not only broken vows, she had handed the world a script where she was wounded and Andy was the villain. The worst night came at a family barbecue in Joliet. Andy almost skipped it, but his sister insisted he show face and eat somebody's over-seasoned ribs. Monica arrived late in red heels, laughing too loud, already halfway committed to cruelty. In front of cousins, aunties, and 3 neighbors who had no business being there, she announced that her affair wasn't the crime of the century and that Andy had spent years married to blueprints and silence. People gasped. One uncle dropped a rib. Monica pointed at Andy's plate and said, "He'll survive. He survives everything except passion." Laughter scattered across the yard. Andy felt smaller than the paper napkin in his hand. That night, Andy sat in his parked car outside the townhouse until the dashboard clock hit 1:14 a.m. He wanted to scream, punch something, curse heaven, anything. Instead, he remembered his father's old lesson from Detroit. When someone wants you wild, disappoint them with discipline. Andy walked inside, slept in the guest room, and woke before sunrise with a new plan. He stopped defending himself to people committed to misunderstanding him. He hired a divorce lawyer named Cynthia Bell, a razor-sharp woman from Evanston with kind eyes and a courtroom reputation that made dishonest spouses sweat. "You do not need louder pain," she told him. "You need cleaner proof." Cynthia asked for everything: bank records, mortgage documents, messages, travel receipts, insurance files, tax returns, social media archives, deleted backups, and a calm head. And he gave her all 3 years of order he had lived by. Order had once made Monica mock him. Now it became a weapon sharper than rage. Receipts showed unexplained charges in Miami, Las Vegas, and Milwaukee on weekends Monica claimed to be at women's retreats or conferences. Their joint account had been drained in neat little bites, small enough to avoid panic, large enough to fund lies. Cynthia smiled the way surgeons probably smile before difficult procedures. "She isn't just reckless," she said. "She's sloppy." As the investigation deepened, funny details surfaced in the wreckage. Damon, the supposedly sophisticated executive Monica had risked her marriage for, had used the same corny message on at least 3 women. Your spirit feels expensive. Cynthia read it aloud in her office, blinked twice, and said, that man talks like a clearance rack philosopher. Even Andy laughed, the first real laugh he had managed in weeks. They found restaurant reservations where Damon misspelled Monica's name as Monica and still got praised online as thoughtful. It was absurd. For all the destruction he caused, Damon had the charm of a man who thought cologne and valet parking made him Shakespeare. Monica grew bolder during the separation. She expected Andy to beg, grovel, maybe even compete for her attention. Instead, he moved quietly, changed nothing publicly, and let her mistake silence for weakness. She paraded Damon through upscale places in Fulton Market as if scandal were a fashion accessory. One evening, a friend sent Andy a video of Monica laughing while Damon attempted salsa dancing and nearly kicked over a candle display. The room howled. Andy watched the clip twice, not from jealousy, but from disbelief that a woman who once mocked him for ordering soup had attached herself to a man who danced like his shoes were under arrest. Then Monica made the mistake that changed everything. Thinking Andy was too stunned to fight, she filed aggressive demands in the divorce. Full control of the townhouse sale, heavy spousal support, half of Andy's retirement, and a statement implying emotional cruelty on his part. She even asked for reimbursement for career disruption, though her career seemed active enough to include rooftop cocktails every Thursday. Cynthia answered by digging into Monica's employer records. What emerged was uglier than an affair. Monica had used company cards for personal trips, routed expenses through fake client meetings, and transferred money from the joint account to hide the overlap. This hearing, Cynthia said, is about to get educational. And he did not celebrate. He became quieter, leaner, and strangely steadier. He started jogging along the lakefront at sunrise, letting the cold air scrape sadness out of him 1 mile at a time. On weekends, he visited his mother, who fed him enough food for emotional reconstruction and kept calling Monica that coupon of a woman, which made Andy laugh despite himself. His little nephew asked if divorce meant you get a new starter wife, and the whole kitchen nearly collapsed from laughter. For the first time since the scandal broke, Joy sneaked back in through side doors. It was small, but it reminded Andy he was still alive beneath humiliation. Monica, meanwhile, kept performing victory. She showed up to mediation in designer sunglasses indoors and told Cynthia, I'm not worried. Andy hates conflict. Cynthia replied, good. Then you'll be shocked by paperwork. Monica kept smiling, but the edges slipped. She underestimated what humiliation does to a decent man once he stops trying to save appearances. And he did not become cruel in those months. He became exact. He remembered dates, emails, account numbers, signatures, deleted messages recovered from cloud backups, and the sound of Monica telling the internet he had driven her away. Some people sharpen knives. Andy sharpened truth, and truth rarely misses when aimed carefully. The week before the hearing, one final gift fell into their hands. Damon, facing trouble in his own marriage and possible consequences at work, sent Monica panicked messages begging her to deny everything financial. Monica replied with the arrogance of someone who still believed charm could erase records. She mocked Andy as too soft to understand what's coming and told Damon the court would eat up her tears if needed. She also admitted, in writing, that she had moved money before filing. Cynthia printed every page, slid them into labeled tabs, and told Andy to sleep well. Tomorrow, she said, she meets a version of accountability she has never dated. The divorce hearing drew more spectators than Andy expected. Family members came under the pretense of support, but stayed for the possibility of spectacle. Monica entered like a woman attending her own awards ceremony. Cream suit, perfect hair, a smile sharpened to cut. She glanced at Andy and whispered, try not to look defeated. It was the same tone she had used at that barbecue, that dinner, that kitchen island confession. For one dangerous second, Andy felt the old humiliation rise again. Then Cynthia squeezed his arm, stood, and began with numbers. No grand speeches, no drama, just dates, charges, transfers, hotel bills, expense reports, and a timeline so precise it felt like thunder in spreadsheet form. Monica's attorney tried to frame the affair as painful but irrelevant, a private moral failing not tied to marital finances. Cynthia agreed that morality alone was not the court's job. Then she opened tab 4. Receipts from Miami paid with the joint card. Tab 7. Luxury gifts for Damon charged during alleged client dinners. Tab 9. Company reimbursements linked to non-existent meetings. Tab 11. Monica's messages admitting she moved money before filing. The room changed temperature. Monica stopped smiling. Cynthia did not raise her voice once. She simply walked the judge through every lie Monica had told in affidavits, every omission, every elegant sentence built on rotten timber. Calm truth hit harder than screaming ever could. When Monica finally took the stand, arrogance tried to save her and only made things worse. She claimed the transfers were misunderstandings, the trips were networking, and the messages were taken out of context. Then Cynthia played a voicemail Monica had forgotten existed, one she had sent Andy accidentally while arguing with Damon in a hotel room. In it, Monica laughed about making Andy pay for the privilege of being embarrassed. Nobody in that courtroom moved. Monica's own lawyer closed his eyes. The judge asked one question, slow and devastating. "Mrs. Harris, is that your voice?" Monica looked suddenly smaller, like vanity itself had shrunk under fluorescent light. Andy had imagined this moment many ways during sleepless nights. He thought he might feel triumph, rage, vindication, maybe even pity. What he felt instead was a deep, strange quiet. Monica, who had spent months turning him into a public joke, was now being dismantled by her own choices in a room where no one laughed. Damon's name entered the record. Her employer's expense violations were flagged. Her request for support crumbled under evidence of deception. Even the cousin who came for gossip looked sick. Monica reached for tears, but tears have poor timing when the paperwork has already testified. Andy sat still while the life she staged began collapsing in real time. The judge's ruling was not theatrical, which made it crueler in a way Monica could not control. The court denied her support claims, credited Andy for the misused marital funds, and adjusted property division heavily against her misconduct in finances and sworn statements. The townhouse would be sold under terms protecting Andy's equity first. Additional findings were referred for review regarding expense abuse with Monica's employer. In a single measured ruling, Monica lost money, leverage, reputation, and the illusion that performance could substitute for integrity. She had humiliated Andy with jokes and captions. The court answered with consequences, the kind that stay on records longer than laughter stays in the air. The hearing ended, but Andy's harshest revenge was still waiting outside. Not violence, not screaming, not even an insult, just exposure. Reporters were not there, but family, church members, co-workers, friends, and every person Monica had entertained with half-truths crowded the hallway. Monica stepped out expecting, if not sympathy, then confusion. Instead, silence met her first, then whispers, then turned shoulders. Kira, who had once laughed at Andy's expense, walked past Monica without a word and hugged Andy tightly. Monica opened her mouth to defend herself, but Cynthia handed her attorney copies of the findings where everybody could see. Public humiliation had finally learned its own reflection. The fallout came quick and mean. Monica's company placed her on leave within days. Damon, apparently loyal only to convenience, vanished behind apologetic lawyers and one very embarrassed wife. Several friends who had reposted Monica's crying monologue deleted it without apology. At church, the same aunties who once said Andy should open up more suddenly discovered powerful theology about reaping what you sow. Andy did not chase any of them for validation. He simply went on living. He painted the guest room, sold the townhouse cleanly, and moved into a condo near the South Loop with better sunlight and no memories attached. Peace, he learned, furnished a room faster than anger. Monica called him 2 weeks later. Her voice, once sharp enough to cut him, sounded tired and unfamiliar. She said people had abandoned her, Damon had ruined her life, and Andy had gone too far. That part almost made him laugh. Gone too far. She had mocked him in public, lied online, weaponized sympathy, drained accounts, and tried to rewrite their marriage as if he were the betrayal. Andy listened without interruption. Then he gave her the only sentence he had saved for the end. "I didn't ruin you, Monica. I stopped protecting you from yourself." She went silent. For the first time, she had no comeback, no audience, and no script. Months later, on a bright Saturday in Millennium Park, Andy sat across from a woman named Lauren, a school principal from Oak Park with patient eyes and a laugh that sounded honest. It was not some dramatic rebound scene. It was simply two adults sharing coffee, teasing each other about terrible public art takes, and discovering ease. When Andy admitted he had once stayed in a marriage too long because he feared starting over, Lauren smiled and said, "Starting over is just life with better editing." He laughed so hard nearby tourists stared. The sound surprised him. It was full, unguarded, and clean. Monica had taken years. She had not taken his future. Andy's story spread through family circles, office whispers, and neighborhood conversations not because revenge was glamorous, but because truth had done what pride never could. Monica had tried to destroy him with laughter, lies, and public shame. Andy answered with discipline, evidence, and a refusal to become ugly just because he had been treated ugly. That was the real wild turn. The moral was simple and hard. Betrayal may be loud, but consequences are louder when patience escorts them into the room. Never mistake a quiet person for a weak one, and never build your victory on someone else's humiliation. Some people survive heartbreak. Others outgrow it and walk away stronger. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.